A woman whose name has not been determined was literally slashed in half, ran the story in the Warsaw National Journal. In a dining car, a male passenger was run clean through by metal fittings. It was just after midday when the express steam train from Katowice raced towards Pruszków on its way to Warsaw at over 50 miles an hour. Eyewitnesses to the disaster spoke of the train's locomotive suddenly leaping off the rails at full speed, then hurtling over the sleepers for a further 100 yards, its carriages flying behind. Panic erupted on board as train conductors shouted to the passengers to hold fast to the rings on the compartment walls. A moment later, the airborne locomotive caught the high-tension electric traction power lines beside the tracks, turned about, and crashed down again, only to be smashed into by its own tender, still half full of water for the route ahead. Steam and smoke gushed from the engine's boiler as the locomotive landed on its side, carriages piling up behind. Screams could be heard through the appalling din of collision as the violently stopped cars smashed into each other, and the weaker ones succumbed to the overwhelming force and were turned into splinters. The bodies of the train driver and his assistant were later found under the twisted remains of the locomotive. 6 people had lost their lives: 4 men, a child, and a woman in quasi-military clothing, who was about 40 years old, travelling alone with no luggage or papers to identify her. A further 3 passengers would later die from their injuries. Most had been in the wooden second and third class carriages, destroyed when hit by the sturdier steel-framed international sleeping car. When the last passengers trapped in the sleeper had been finally cut free with acetylene torches, the Warsaw papers patriotically claimed that the strong steel construction of the Polish cars limited the dimensions of the disaster. That, and the speedy response of the paramedics, were perhaps the only chinks of light in the catastrophe. Emotions were running high, not only because of the fatalities, but also as, in the summer of 1939, Poland was on the brink of war. It was soon reported that the train disaster was the result of a bomb or other act of sabotage by German or Soviet agents. Further down the press pages, a national search was launched for the unidentified female passenger who had suffered such catastrophic injuries.